everyone, my name is Katrina Walsall from Oliphant Cat and I am a knitting teacher and designer based in Sydney in Australia. I'm here today with a quick tutorial for you on how to do German short rows. So go grab your knitting and let's get started. So if you've never seen a short row before, it's exactly what the name implies. It's when you work a row of knitting that doesn't span the entire length of your stitches. So here I have my project and we're going to work some short rows in the border. So the first thing you do is you actually work all the stitches in that short row. So in my particular case, I'm doing seed stitch, but you can do this in whatever stitch the pattern that you're working requires you to do. Most commonly, you're doing this over stockinette. So now we've worked our short row, we have to turn our work and start working back in the other direction. So if I was to just start knitting, I'd end up with a pretty big gap here where I did the turn. And so you have to do something special to make sure you close up that gap. In German short rows, the thing you do that's special is called a double stitch. So to make a double stitch, you make sure your yarn is in the front and you slip one stitch purlwise. Then you grab the yarn and you pull it up and over the needle. And if you were to just do a regular yarn over, it would look like this. But with a double stitch, you want to actually pull it quite tightly. So it shouldn't look like a yarn over. It should look like you've made two stitches next to each other where there used to just be one. And when you are counting stitches later in the project, just make sure that you treat this double stitch as a single stitch and not two. And if you need help identifying it, you can pop a marker next to it just to make sure you can remember where they are. Okay, so I'll show you how to do that one more time. So work the number of stitches you need in your short row. And this time what I'm going to do is show you what happens if the short row ended on a purl stitch. So last time it ended on a knit stitch. When the last stitch in your short row is a purl, the process is exactly the same, but it looks a little bit different. So turn your work, then make sure before you slip the stitch that the yarn is at the front. Slip your stitch, and then pull up and over. Now, as you'll see, the double stitch looks quite different. It's got this little twist thing to it. And it feels a bit more awkward pulling the yarn up and over when you actually try it, but don't worry, you're doing it right. So we'll pop another marker in, just so we remember where that was. And now I will show you how to actually knit into those stitches when you come to them. Okay, so now we're at our double stitches, so we know they're there because we put our markers in. If the pattern tells you that you need to purl the double stitch, what you do is you pull the yarn to the front like you normally would for a purl. Then you insert the tip of your right needle into both strands of the double stitch like you were going to purl two together. Then it's a purl two together from that point, so wrap your yarn around and pull it through. If you have to knit the double stitch together, then make sure the yarn's in the back. And it's basically the same as a knit two together. So you take the tip of the right hand needle, put it into both of the strands or legs of the double stitch, wrap your yarn around like you would for a knit two together, and then pull it through both of the loops. And that's it. I'll just do a couple of the rest of the stitches in the row so we can see what it looks like in an actual row. So if you take a look now, there's no big gap where our double stitches were, and they're pretty indistinguishable from any other plain old stitch. So it's sort of hard to see where the double stitches were. They just look like regular stitches. So that's it. I hope that was helpful. If you've come looking for this tutorial, I assume that you're using a pattern that has German short rows in it. So just follow the pattern and it'll tell you exactly when to turn and make the double stitches and whether to knit or purl them together when you come to them. One thing you do need to watch out for is that German short rows only became popular recently, so there isn't really a standard set of abbreviations yet for them. So every designer who writes them a little bit differently, so make sure to read your pattern carefully. But once you get the hang of how to actually do the double stitches and how the pattern's written, it'll be easy enough to work through them. If you'd like to see how I write them and get a lot of practice doing German short rows, this pattern is called the 4-way stop baby blanket, and it's a great one for learning German short rows because you actually do a short row at the beginning of every single row that you work. So I'll pop a link to the pattern down below. So good luck with your short rows and let me know how you go in the comments. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button so other people can find it, and you can find the rest of my tutorials in this playlist here. Happy knitting!